Hey guys, Melvin here. Welcome to the attic. Today we're reading 2 stories from the RPG Horror Stories subreddit. Our first story is by user CitizenKane1. It's about a DM whose unrequited love turns to bitter revenge when a player has eyes for another member of the party. Let's check it out. Once upon a time, a friend of mine from college asked me if I was interested in a homebrew campaign he was getting together. We had played together a few times before, once with him as DM for a one-shot, and he had done a fantastic job, so I said yes. He asked me to invite other friends as well. I invited some friends, but the only one who was interested was a guy we'll call Arthur. Art was a couple years older than me, going to college after just finishing a contract in the army. He had never played D&D before, but said it sounded like fun, and he wanted to give it a try. He was really well built and into fitness, as well as friendly, and knew how to have a good time. Art is the kind of guy who does everything 100%, so when he agreed to be a part of the campaign, he started reading through the PHP and watching videos to learn everything he could about being a good player. First session arrives. We meet at the DM's place, and everyone introduces themselves. The other players are a friend of the DM, Bob, and a friend of Bob's, Jenny. DM obviously has eyes for Jen. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the whole reason he invited Bob. DM pays special attention to Jen and her pyromancer sorcerer character, while neglecting Art, who is completely new, playing a human fighter, of course. As the sessions go on, DM introduces several NPCs that all say creepy things toward Jen, and she politely turns them down each time. Meanwhile, both in-game and out, she starts to flirt with Art. After a while, it's pretty obvious they are interested in each other, which causes DM to start targeting Art. He refuses to help whenever Art asks a question or anytime he attempts to do something cool. Enemies always seem to go after our fighter, as well as get random buffs. But the party works together and Art doesn't die. At one point, the DM flat out told Jen that there is no way her character would be interested in Art because his charisma and intelligence were both really low. To this day, I still remember the way she looked over at Art and then told the DM, "Well, maybe my character just likes big, strong, dumb guys." That was the final straw. Next session was a dungeon crawl, and it was filled to the brim with traps and monsters. Of course, most of the attacks and traps required either an intelligence or a charisma saving throw. He repeatedly tried to get Art's character charmed, I'm guessing so he could either make him attack Jen or have him do something NSFW with one of the monsters while she watched. Finally, we find the dungeon boss, who is some kind of homebrew buffed succubus with a few minions. Near the end of the fight, everyone is at their limit. Bob is making death saving throws. My cleric and Jen's sorcerer are both out of spell slots. Art has guidance, so he's made his wisdom saving throws so far, but is 1 or 2 hits away from going down. Art has a sentinel feat, so thus far the succubus has stayed out of his reach. After another failed charm attempt, the succubus moves right in front of Art. Naturally, Art moves to roll some dice for his attack, but the DM stops him and says, "I only moved 29 feet, so I'm 6 feet away." Art gives him a look and asks, "Are you sure you want to do this?" DM pretends like he didn't say anything. It's my turn next, then Art's. I'm completely fed up with the DM's antics, so I announce that my cleric will be dashing to move within 5 feet behind the enemy to flank it. Art goes next, says he's going to attack and starts rolling dice. He gets enough to hit. Then the DM says that his attack missed because he's still 6 feet away. Art is visibly angry by this point, but calmly says, "I take 1 step forward and make my second attack." He rolls twice, and the second roll is a crit. He then action surges and makes 2 more attacks, both of them hitting. After adding up all the damage from various bonuses, the DM starts to get visibly teary-eyed, then says that everyone in 5 feet has to make a dexterity saving throw. I fail the save and my character takes a huge amount of force damage, which not only knocks him out, but instantly kills him due to massive damage rules. Art makes the save. He's out on the ground, but the fight is over. Because I guess succubi randomly explode when they die? Jen's character runs over and immediately heals him with a potion. The DM told us that the session was over. I think there were some half-hearted goodbyes at this point, but everyone left pretty quickly and we all knew none of us were coming back. Fortunately, Art decided to give D&D another chance. He and Jen found another group to join and they still play together. the last I heard. I haven't spoken to my former friend, the DM, since then, so I have no idea what happened with him. But I hope he's grown and is doing okay these days. Sounds like Arthur's patience and perseverance only made him more desirable in the end. I may spend most of my time here in the attic, but that's the kind of resolve that inspires. Know what I mean? Our second story was posted by user JPDelta6. It tells the tale of a player who joins a seemingly friendly online group. However, this group quickly turns against him due to suspicion, fear of technology, and good old fantasy racism. Let's take a look. So, I've been playing D&D for a while. I started back in middle school where I was playing Pathfinder, and it was one of my favorite things ever. Recently, I've been with some of my old school friends, though we don't get to hang out a lot, so I've been joining other groups trying to satisfy my addiction. One of my recent groups I joined was really disheartening. It's nothing horrible, but still. One of my buddies suggested I check a local board for groups on Discord. The one I found was a party of 4 and the DM who wanted a 5th party member. Nothing alarmed me. It was a 5th edition campaign with a photo of a friendly looking bunch. I give them a message and they're very inviting, asking about my experience and how I like to play. I was enjoying the atmosphere and I was excited to begin. My character was a level 4 fighter and a level 2 rogue, neutral good drow. He was a saboteur for a drow kingdom, a member of a group of guerrilla fighters causing havoc and all kinds of attacks behind enemy lines. I initially thought he was a loyal soldier, but after years of killing innocent groups and eventually being turned against rogue factions in his home, he lost his loyalty to the kingdom. He left with some difficulty, but now is trying to find a peaceful life. The DM liked the idea of the character, and since the group was already level 7, he was fine with it. The reason I was only level 6 was my suggestion to compensate for rarer items like a musket, and small explosives, and some other things. I was absolutely positively, without a question of doubt, psyched. Now for the rest of the crew. First was our orc grave cleric, whose tribe all died mysteriously and whose wife was a drow. Second was the barbarian human who had previously been a bandit leader, but the party had convinced them to join them. The third was a fighter bard Furbolg, previously a gladiator with a flair for showmanship. And finally the shifter monk. He was terribly boring until later. My party met me when I stumbled upon them getting terrorized by deranged wargs, and getting slaughtered somehow, bad rolls and a lot of wargs. I started taking pot shots basically from close by. Normally my character would have let them handle it on their own, but he knew those wargs had been driven crazy by his kingdom, and his team had released them to cause havoc on the local farmers. I take out a few, and they win. Before my character can slink off, I am cornered by a barbarian who was demanding to know who I was and what black magic I was using. The DM reminded him guns like that weren't unheard of, just rare, and they weren't very advanced. But the barbarian claims he probably wouldn't, and the DM agrees. I didn't care. I responded, "Not magic, sir, advanced warfare. That's all. I'd be happy to demonstrate." The grave cleric chimes in, "I've never heard of such a thing either." He definitely had, but he seemed to not care. I ended up explaining how my gun functions to them, and the two of them ended up getting mad and threatening me. If it hadn't been for the fighter stepping in and saying he'd seen one during his time in the arena. Our characters end up getting along really well. The fighter had grown disgusted by the bloodlust of the crowds, so he'd left seeking something else in life. Honestly, I was loving the campaign right off the bat. Hadn't even thought about the other two's odd behavior. The fighter ended up convincing the party and my character to join the party. I was able to prove how capable I was when some spirit or something began terrorizing anyone who lived there, with more of the wargs and bigger creatures as well. The mayor of the town tells us that the spirit has been about for ages, sending deranged animals into towns. But only 1 or 2, not the dozens suddenly ripping through the communities, and wargs were never seen around there. My character, of course, knew where they came from. I informed the fighter about what was going on. Only him. Much to my annoyance, the barbarian actually managed to eavesdrop. But why he decided to in character, I don't know. The DM let it slide. He liked Drama. He rushed to the cleric and monk, who was having a town hall meeting discussing where the spirit had been seen. Barbarian. Everyone listen. The Dark Elf scum is responsible. Cleric. What? Barbarian. The Dark Elf is a spy from the Underdark. He and his comrades have been summoning monsters here to destroy the valley, and they've been using the spirit to do it. Now, this miffed me. He'd heard every word I'd said, and the DM said as much, and so he was clearly lying. But the DM asked for no bluff roll, the town just bought it. Monk. Wait, how do you know? Barbarian. I just heard him talking to the fighter. They're in league. Our characters show up having heard the barbarian yelling. Me. What's happened? Is everyone alright? Farmer. There's the bastard! Fighter. Wait, what? Cleric. I should have known. Where are your men? How many are there? Me, genuinely confused. Men? What is this? Fighter. He didn't do anything. Mayor. You and your Underdark fiends have brought the monsters upon us. Me. No, listen, please. Yes, when I was a soldier we released the warg, but that's why I'm here now. I'm trying to undo that. Monk. You liar! Townspeople start getting angry, jeering and threatening me mostly, and the fighter. Me. Please, I promise I'll do everything in my power to hunt down every last warg and the spirit. I won't ask for payment or praise. I will bring the body of every warg in this valley. 18 on diplomacy. The townsfolk seemed to consider it, not the barbarian. He drew his mace and charged me. Barbarian. No more lies. I shoved the fighter away and ducked, with a narrow evasion. I hit him with the butt of my gun and ran, dragging the fighter as everyone takes chase. I ended up dashing into the woods, throwing one of my explosives at a tree, bringing it down on the cleric. The barbarian tried to go through it to no success. Both of them were being idiots. The monk wasn't. He was a shifter and could turn to a wolf, sort of, and burned a key point just to catch up in no time. He decked me, sending teeth flying. I came back with a knife. Me. I didn't do this. Monk ignores me and takes another hit before the fighter uses his net to entangle the monk. And I knocked him out with the butt of my gun. We ended up escaping but spent the rest of the night rolling stealth checks to escape. I hear the barbarian lose it when the DM says we escaped. He starts ranting about a lot of things. The cleric adds remarks every once in a while. Apparently from the start, the barbarian had a problem with my character's 3 main concepts. First, guns. Despite the DM saying they were fine, he said it gave me a super unfair advantage. My musket was best at a distance and got 1 round before being reloaded. Second, drow. They were an evil-only race, not a PC race. Don't know why he said it was a problem. Finally, my desire for a new life? He said it was stupid, despite that being his exact character's bandit to hero thing, and drow couldn't change to neutral good alignment. It was dumb, and in the end, I grew tired of petty insults and announced I was done. I got several hostile messages from the barbarian, an apology from the DM and monk, who had just been having fun, and the cleric blaming me for the whole thing falling apart. It always bummed me out I never got to play my drow again. I was friends with the monk and fighter for a while, but we just don't talk much now. So, thanks for listening. Once again, we see what happens when bitterness possesses weak-willed roleplayers. Though like Arthur in our first story, OP is able to craftily subdue their pursuers in-game. Until the only thing left is that time-honored tradition of butthurt, a good old-fashioned down-home tantrum. Thank you for joining me for these stories. Once again, I've had a lot of fun reading them with y'all. Please leave a like if you had a good time, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Alright everyone, take care of yourselves. This is Melvin, in the attic, signing out.